And in the UK, aside from lawmakers approving legislation that will allow the country to exit the EU on January 31 with a withdrawal deal, in corporate news, British retailer B&M saw its shares slump 5.4% after reporting slower than expected sales growth over the Christmas quarter. Well, let's talk to Juliana. Hello, Juliana. Good afternoon. Well, it's been a nail-biting market weekend today on the back of the US-Iran tensions. How are the London markets wrapping up this Friday?
Good afternoon, Chimeze. Yes, nail-biting indeed. I think the volatility is definitely wind down, and now, rather than focusing on Washington and Tehran, in the city, we're really focusing on that US jobs market data, which is due in right about now. At intraday, the FTSE All-Share is up 0.02%, the FTSE 100 is up 0.05%, and the FTSE 250 is down 0.11% at intraday. In currencies, the pound is down on the dollar by 0.05%, up on the euro by 0.10%, and up on the Japanese yen by 0.04%.
High street news also made big headlines this week. Is there anything left to know today from retailers like M&S and Superdry?
Well, you know, this week, yes, it has been all about retailers delivering their Christmas numbers, Christmas being a really important season, particularly as already we've seen from data that 2019 was the worst year on record for the UK high street. Today, JD Sports there, unlike all of the other retailers, or most of them, they've been doing exceptionally well. They haven't announced their exact data for year on year, but they have hinted to shareholders that they're expecting their full year results to be about 400 and 430 between those numbers, 400 and 430 million pounds, which is really good news. On the flip side of that, one of the Christmas casualties are Superdry, which is a Japanese firm. Their shares slumped 19% today, which is a record high slump for them, and that's because they reported their 10-week to January the 4th sales were down about 14%, so they're really struggling. Their CEO has spoken out, and they're citing the fact that it's been really competitive, and a lot of these retailers, especially those that are selling similar clothing, are doing a lot of competitive price war biddings. So the products may be selling, but they're selling at really low prices, which is really dragging down the sales. So not a great day for Superdry, but good day for JD Sports.
And the Home Office says the sum of £20 million is being invested to combat criminal abuse of pay-as-you-go phones. What is the underlying problem here?
Well, the underlying problem here, Chimeze, is drugs and gangs. A lot of police forces across the UK have been trying to, you know, stop what they call county lines, which is gangs from London who go to particular areas where you have a lot of vulnerable children, and they use pay-as-you-go phones to rack up millions of pounds worth of drug money. Now, pay-as-you-go SIM cards in the UK at the moment do not need registration, so literally anybody can walk into a store and buy a phone, and police forces have realised that this is one of the main catalysts for serious drug abuse and drug sales in the UK. So they have said that they're going to put £20 million into trying to resolve this issue. And what they're trying to do is to allow the government to make it mandatory that you do register for these phones. So when they do find these phones, which are typically thrown away from gang members, they can trace it to exactly who purchased it.
Well, Juliana, we can say thank God it's Friday, but I'm sure we can't go to sleep because we'll continue to follow those developments there. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of the weekend. And in Asia, markets were mostly in positive territory on Friday following the easing of US-Iran tensions and after US stocks shot to new highs overnight. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 rose 0.47%, while the Topix was up 0.35%. Over in South Korea, the Kospi jumped 0.91%. Mainland Chinese markets bucked the upward trend. The Shanghai Composite inched down to close at 3,092 points, while the Shenzhen Composite fell 0.18%. The Shenzhen Shenzhen Component dropped 0.17%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index, however, climbed 0.19% in its final hour of trade. Australia's S&P ASX 200 was higher by 0.80% at close. In the U.S., stock index futures were higher on Friday morning as world markets rally on the back of easing tensions in the Middle East. At around 3:45 a.m. Eastern Time, Dow futures rose 41 points, indicating a positive open of more than 49 points. Futures on the S&P and Nasdaq were also higher. U.S. equities hit record highs on Thursday on the back of the easing tensions. Investors will also be busy on Friday with different sets of data releases. There will be non-farm payrolls and unemployment figures due at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and wholesale inventories are scheduled for 10 a.m. Eastern Time. There are no corporate earnings to note. On global oil markets, prices dropped on Friday, extending days of losses on the threat of war in the Middle East receded, and investors switched attention to economic growth prospects and the rise in U.S. crude oil and product inventories. Brent crude fell 20 cents at $65.17 and is heading for its first decline in 6 weeks, down 5%. WTI was down 20 cents at $59.36 and also on track for a first weekly drop in 6, nearly 6% from last Friday's close based on the latest prices. Oil is now below where it was before a U.S. drone strike killed a top Iranian general on January 3, with Iran responding with a ballistic missile attack on Iraqi air bases hosting U.S. forces this week that left no casualties. And in metals market, gold prices fell on Friday and were set for their worst week in 5 as easing tensions in the Middle East prompted investors to move back to riskier bets. Spot gold fell 0.3% to $1,548.17 per ounce in early trade. Prices fell as much as 1% to their lowest since January 3 at $1,539 on Thursday. The metal was down 0.2% so far this week. It's worse since week ended December 6. U.S. gold futures eased 0.3% to $1,549. Gold, a safe asset during political and economic uncertainties, has surged over $1,600 on Wednesday after Iran launched missile strikes on U.S. forces in retaliation of the killing of its top commander in a drone attack. In all the metals, palladium rose 0.2% to $2,111 an ounce, having hit a record peak of $2,149 in the previous session on supply woes. For the week, the metal was set to post its best week since mid-June, rising over 6% so far. Silver fell 0.3% at $17.84 per ounce and was down nearly 1% so far this week, while platinum was flat at $966.62. We'll take a break, and when we come back, of course, we look back into the African country and getting an update from South African market. To stay with us.